Hi, welcome into this episode in this edition of Carps Corner, the Bobby Carpenter Show. We got the pregame preview, and sorry it's coming out a little late. I've had a lot of things going on personally this week, and so I appreciate hanging in there. Had trouble getting stuff posted on Wednesday, and then getting this out a little bit later than I like. But thanks for hanging here with me. Thanks for sticking with me. Got a friend who lost their wife, and it's very, very difficult to kind of deal with. So I've been trying to keep a close eye on them and help take care of some stuff right around the holidays. So it's very, very, very difficult time as well with that. But we're going to get to this preview against Maryland. Ohio State traveling out there on the road, final road game of the regular season. Mike Locksley, had some success against Ohio State, never resulting in wins. Go back to that 2018 game when Ryan Day was the OC and throwing that ball to Rashad Berry to ultimately save the game. My goodness, that day, Ohio State's defense couldn't stop anybody. My goodness, couldn't play dead in the Western, if you will. But those days seem to be in the past. Ohio State, I believe, kicked 3:30, ESPN, ABC, one of the two. It's not on Fox. Ohio State, about midweek, was a 25.5 point favorite. Now that's ballooning up to 27.5, 28. Line just keeps climbing. Weather should be pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of storms coming through, a lot of snow, but that's all north, more in the Great Lakes region. So should be pretty good weather. What was nice, had some rough weather this week. Practice, some winds, a little snow, a little cold. So as we get ready here and moving into Thanksgiving week, big game, I think that will ultimately bode well for the Bucks. Before we get, all the way into the game, Ryan Day had some thoughts from his coach's show that wanted to share and kind of get him out there and talk about him a little bit, from Jackson Smith and Jigba playing to the speed of the season every year, Cade Stover, line of scrimmage stuff, hitting CJ running in practice. So there's a lot of things there. But the season always goes super fast. My goodness, like I said, we got 2 games left and 8 days of the regular season. So before you know it, boom, it is always gone. And for those upperclassmen, you think it goes fast for you, it goes real fast for them, as those guys will be staring out their last opportunity to run out of the shoe here before too long. I want to start out. Ryan had some thoughts, was asked lightning round, coach's show, is Jackson Smith and Jigba, his thoughts on playing.
I wouldn't say expecting. I'd probably say more hoping, but no update at this point.
Well, you heard it was quick, it's brief, it was short. Hope. I don't feel like he's going to be playing this week. I think there's a chance he plays against Michigan. I think so. I'll have to kind of get a better feel for that next week. But I do see there potentially being a chance for that, or they win in the Big Ten championship, or potentially moving on. I think he wants to play. I think this isn't a situation where, he's avoiding getting on the field. I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think Jackson wants to play. He's a highly competitive kid, young man. I mean, obviously very talented. And I don't believe that it would disrupt the chemistry as well. So that question was thrown out a lot in the mailbag. If he comes back, what will that do? He'll be good. As long as him and CJ are on the same page. That wide receiver room, as you guys have seen, from obviously the top 3 guys that are playing now, but then Xavier Johnson, JSN. I mean, these guys are all they're all huge fans of each other. So don't worry about that too much. These are Ryan's thoughts on the season and the speed of which it goes, only having 2 games left.
Yeah, it goes fast, especially the second half of the season. And we talked about that at the bye week, just how quick these games go and how fast they go. And so don't wait around, let's go. We got to have urgency about us. And here we are in November.
Season always goes fast. As you're a coach, it begins to go faster and faster and faster. It's something that's always kind of difficult to get your mind around when you try to tell young people that. As you get older, man, days go quick. Or days are long, years are fast, and the seasons go really fast. And I've tried to kind of communicate that to the upperclassmen, especially last weekend. You're going to be running out of the shoe for your last time ago. Enjoy it this week. Because against Michigan, it's real hard. It's senior day at the Tunnel of Pride. You're going to be amped up for that final game. And it's going to be really, really hard to kind of soak it in. Because after that, I've been down that ramp a bunch as a pedestrian. Not as a player in the last 15 years. And it's hard. It's a special deal. And I don't go up this little small part because, the tight part of the rim, because that's for the players. That's where they go up. I'm not a player anymore and haven't been a player at Ohio State for a long time. So I just try to make sure, guys, just look out. When you look around and you can see the stadium, man. I remember I did it for my final couple games, actually. And I would run out and I would just try to embrace like everything that was there because it's so special. Buckeye Nation, the horseshoe running out. It is a very unique beast and something that's incredibly awesome. So Ryan goes on here, a little bit longer cut, talking about Cade Stover and waxing poetically about him and everything that he's meant to this team and the conversations that they've had about him moving to tight end and everything else.
Whatever I say won't be enough. Cade is a leader. He's tough. He's persevered. He's wise beyond his years. When you're talking to him, you're talking to a man. He was that way coming out of high school, really, though. He just, was really strong. But at the same time, he was still 18, 19, 20 years old. I think he's maybe now 21. But up until this year, hadn't really enjoyed the success that I think a lot of us believed that he would. And at one point, he and I had that conversation about moving over to tight end. And I shared him my thoughts, what I thought I saw in him. And, I think you have to ask him. I think he said, okay, I believe in you. And we kind of took this leap of faith together. And there was some doubt last year, especially at the end of the season. He felt frustrated, I think, being from Ohio and the way the season ended. And then in the offseason was kind of back and forth, not sure about playing linebacker and tight end. But again, took that leap of faith. And now you're seeing all that hard work pay off. And I can't say enough about his toughness, his leadership, who he is as a person. And he's had such an impact on a lot of guys, setting an example and then holding guys accountable.
A lot there that Ryan says. And I think the biggest piece of it, a couple of big things. Number one, to me, talking about last year not sitting well with him, the end of last season, losing to that team up north, losing to Michigan, what that means, especially when you're an Ohio guy and you understand the rivalry so well, you've lived it, you've experienced it. And heck, he's probably only really experienced wins, for the better part of his sports playing adultish life. Given the last one they lost was 2011. So it'd been a long time since Cade was, probably 9-10 years old. And before that, he doesn't remember one either because the one before that was in 2003. So seeing that, Ryan wanting him to enjoy the success, coming, flipping over, talking to him about playing tight end, moving around. And it wasn't a smooth process. He goes over last year, and it's hard to kind of jump and switch and play a new position in college, no matter how athletic and how gifted you are. It's kind of go through all that and kind of figure that out. So that was tough. It was tough, but it feels like Cade responded in a big way. But the belief that he had, and the trust and the faith, and you trust your coach, like, listen, I think you can do this. You do it well, we're going to give you a great opportunity. And we're going to give you a chance to be really good. And honestly, I told Cade when he was looking at this, like, buddy, you might be able to play linebacker in the NFL a little bit, but I think you can play in NFL at tight end for a long time. I thought, okay, I'll be able to be good special teams player, be a second tight end, move around, great blocker, good possession receiver. He's proven to be so much more than that. And what this year has meant to him and what it's allowed him to do and the growth and maturation, like, Cade Stover, I think, is going to be a good NFL player and probably a good NFL player for a decade. And so that speaks to his testament, his character's belief and the work that he put in, everything else. So big for Cade Stover right there and what he's been able to do and the success that he's ultimately been able to have. Now, another thing Ryan was asked about, the line of scrimmage of having success where these games were won. And that's something that I really want to focus on.
It does. Again, those guys, are going to be the key as we, go attack this thing down the stretch. It's gonna come down to the offensive line, defensive line, and we know that. That's where the games are won and lost. So I think there's been really good work in practice. There's been, really good work during the games, and we want to continue that here on Saturday at 3:30.
So line of scrimmage is where the games are won. Ryan understands it. Big games, both sides of the ball. It's a huge piece of it. You have to be able to run the ball on offense, run the ball in short yardage situations, and get through all those things. And that's going to be a big deal. Run it when they know that you're running it and understanding that. And then defensively, you saw last year, Michigan's going to come out. They're going to pound the football. They're going to pound the rock, and that's going to be huge. So you've got to be able to get those stops. That's what their identity is. I feel really good about the defense. I feel pretty decent about the offense. I know we'll be able to get stops there. And then lastly, Talk about CJ, working on the running game in practice with them. How do you do that? How does that ultimately shake out?
We don't tackle CJ in practice. We don't really tackle anybody in practice. We really don't hit CJ in practice. He wears a black jersey to make sure that we're smart about that. That's something that the D-line has to understand, and they do an unbelievable job of that. Larry does a great job of that, of understanding that in practice as they're working their technique. No, we have things that we work on a weekly basis when, it's time and it's appropriate. We involve him in the run game, whether it's, through RPOs or checking away from somebody or also having to, put the ball in his arms like he did in the Northwestern game.
So you're not going to hit the quarterback in practice. You're never going to hit your starting quarterback in practice. Now, Tress used to let us hit the backups a little more. Ryan, they all wear black jerseys, and I get that. That's understandable. So they don't let him hit. The D-line has to understand that. They get it. And, there are ways they work on the run, and they're able to get some things going. So that's an important piece of it. They work on the pulls. CJ's a good athlete. He's not Braxton Miller, but he doesn't have to be. And they work on that. They grind through some of those things and, try to improve on that, during the week. And Ryan puts some time and effort into it. And CJ understands what he ultimately has to do. All right, now let's get in to some of the keys of the game, what we need to watch, and everything else. So we'll start out with this. Some of the guys on Ohio State that I'm going to be taking a look at this weekend, going to keep an eye on how they're deployed. Number one, Xavier Johnson. Said he talked to Coach Day. Ryan and him had conversations about how they're going to deploy him. He's ready to take on more. And so they get him more at running back? I don't believe Mine Williams is going to play at all. I would probably be pretty shocked, I think, if Trey gets too much action. So you're talking about Dallin Hayden, and then you're talking about Xavier Johnson, who I think could be a pretty unique X factor for this team moving forward. So don't be surprised if Ryan doesn't utilize this game as an opportunity to get him on the field and maybe try something new. The interior of the offensive line. I think Luke Whippler's been pretty good. But Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones. These guys have been good. And they've had times where they've struggled. That's going to happen with younger players. But I'm going to need to see a dominating performance this Saturday. Because Maryland's not very good up front on the defensive line. Not very good at all. And so if they have any dreams of being able to dent Michigan's defensive line, who has one of the best run defenses in the country, if not the best, maybe. If you want to try to dent that defensive line, you're going to have to make sure you're getting push. It's going to be technique. It's going to be getting low. It's going to be driving them off. It's going to be dirt, nasty, a little grit in there. Those are the things you're going to need. And you don't need it for 4 quarters. Get these guys going. Get the run game going. Get them out. But you need to see progress, and you need to see it continue to move that way. Because that Northwestern performance wasn't great, and it's still kind of lingering in my mind. Ryan talked a lot about this guy earlier, Cade Stover. His level of involvement. What are they going to do with him? They try to get him going a little bit before Michigan. Do you hold something back? How's he look? He's been a little nicked up from time to time. Is he healthy? Because I think he's a big key going in to Michigan week. What he can do. Michigan usually thrives with throwing the ball to their running backs and tight ends. I love that Ryan loves to flip the script and utilize teams, what they do, and use that against them. I think Cade Stover could be a huge key. So a lot of the things I'm pointing out is, what are we doing this week? Let's get ready for next. So Cade Stover with that. I think he could be a huge key in the Michigan game. And what does he do this week? How does he look? And getting him ready and juiced up and ultimately deployed. Big deal right there. Cody Simon has been playing well all season long. I know I talk a lot about Steele, Chambers, and Tommy Eichenberg, and those guys have been great, and they've improved immensely. And Tommy's been incredibly consistent each and every game. Cade's Steele's made his big plays, and he's done a good job, and they're both near the top in tackles. And then right behind him is Cody Simon. And Cody comes in like their big package, their 3-backer package. He also rotates in a little bit with those guys. Very, very smart player, experienced, understands the system, understands the scheme, knows what's going on, physical guy, pretty thick dude. And so against Michigan, they're going to probably use 3 linebackers. Now, I don't think you have to use 3 linebackers against Maryland, and you don't have to use them all the time against Michigan. Hopefully, you get them in long down and distances, and they have to get to other stuff. But Cody's going to get in the game. I want to make sure he's playing well. Not that I don't think he's going to, but you want to see that momentum carry over. From playing well against Maryland, carry that right over to a huge game against Michigan. He's tough. Went through offseason, shoulder surgery, rehab that thing, had to sit out of the bowl game. Like, he was playing pretty well last year considering he was, injured and nicked up. But he's played really well this year. I want to continue to see that momentum going. They're going to get him in there. I feel, if this game goes according to plan, you want to see that momentum being carried forward. And then the last piece is defensive back rotation. I want to see how that looks at corner specifically. I think you're going to have all 5 guys playing and healthy. It'll probably start leaning on the older guys. Denzel Burke, Cam Brown, Jordan Hancock's back. He's looked really good. J.K. Johnson, he's played well at times, got pulled at times because he missed some tackles, done some really, really good things. Young players are inconsistent. That happens. And you have Jair Brown too, similar to J.K. He's done some really good things. Also has had some stuff where, young players, they'll make a mistake from time to time. So has to continue to stay consistent and continue to work at it. So those are kind of the areas that I'm looking at for Ohio State. Or I'm looking at Maryland. Where are you going to want to watch? Roman Hembley, their running back. Talented dude. About 140 carries, about a little over 800 yards this year. Had 62 or 68 yards against Penn State last week. Freshman, talented guy. He's someone you're going to want to bottle up, take away the run game. Maryland, not a huge running team. They'd like to really throw it, but they've gotten beaten up. And the next guy I'll talk about, he's had some injuries. Their offensive line hasn't been great. So there should be feasting up front by the D-line. So I didn't really talk about any of those guys. They should be able to take care of it. But Tulea or Tuatito, as some people over at the Dot the I's call him, my guys, Austin Ward in Birmingham. Tagovailoa, Tua's younger brother. When he's good, he's really good. And he was really good early in the season. But usually Mike Loxley, his offenses kind of fade off. They struggle at the end of the year. They start fast, and his teams fade, his offense fades, and they're just not as good by the end of the season as they were early on. And that's just the reality of what it's been. And some of that's been with Tulea, his struggles and his injuries, because he's getting hit a lot because they don't protect him the way that they should. But he's completed 68% of his balls almost this year, about 2,100 yards. But against big games, when he played Michigan, he had a touchdown and 2 interceptions. He's been better taking care of the ball this year, but there's still been points where he struggled. And against better teams and bigger games, he has struggled a little bit and given the ball away, but he's also been hurt. He's had some other things. Should be healthy and should be ready to go this game. And then lastly, the receiver, Rakeem Jarrett. He's got 37 catches for 406 yards this year. Last year, he had over 800 yards. He's explosive. You felt like they're at the beginning of the season, they had weapons on the edge and guys that could really push the field. And I felt really good about that. I don't know if I feel quite that same way anymore. But Rakeem Jarrett, he is one of the guys that, he got some threats to make big plays. So you got to keep an eye on him. The 3 things to watch, I guess, kind of keys to victory. What I really want to see. Quarterbacks. All the corners are healthy. They'll all be playing. Everyone's nicked up. It's the 11th game of the season. See, shutdown passing game. I thought this would be a good test for Ohio State to test the defensive backs at the beginning of the season. Now, offensively, Maryland hasn't been as advertised through the second half of the year. Yeah, and you get that. You understand it. They've been beat up. Quarterbacks had some injuries, all these things. But you need to shut down the passing game. And I want to see that with those corners, young and old, getting in there, locking it down. Second thing, 0 special teams errors. Fielding punts and kickoffs, there's been some issues. Recently, going back to the beginning of the season. No muffs, no miscues, catching the ball cleanly, getting positive yards, continuing to cover on punts and kickoffs. There are people, my man Austin Ward's worried about someone taking one back, or actually Jeremy Birmingham worried about Ohio State's kickoff coverage, getting one housed on them. And he's like, part of it is they kick off so stinking much, and that's true, that you're bound to get a boomerang before too long. But tight coverage, no muffs, no miscues. I want confidence, optimism, positivity heading into the final game. And then lastly, act accordingly. Bo Bishop says it all the time, my guy. This game needs to be in the books by 5:30. Coming out of the second half, you should feel really good about where this game is. 31-7, 31-3, 28-7, whatever it is. get a score in the second half, put this thing away, get everybody out, because the bonus key right here is you want everybody to leave healthy. Got some guys on the shelf, getting them rest. That's key. That's critical. You'll want to make sure you do that. But then also no fresh injuries. Don't aggravate anything. Make sure everyone goes into Thanksgiving weekend feeling good. So that's what we need to do. That's what you got. That's the end of this show. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, share, comment, get your feedback. I love doing the interaction with the mailbag. We'll do hopefully some live shows and some different stuff here as the season kind of slows down, but should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this game, and listen, this is the appetizer before the main course. So enjoy this one, and then we get ready for a full week of Michigan with some great stories and a lot of good things. Until next time, talk to you soon.